the King of Dragons Arcade Revision 2. King of Dragons is a D&D beat 'em up style game, and the Arcade Revision 2 is a second revision of the original arcade game. What we're going to be playing it on is the Nintendo Switch. Capcom Brawlers released several arcade style beat 'em ups, and we're going to be doing the King of Dragons version that they released of it. One of the nice things about that is Capcom put in a save state system. So King of Dragons has 4 drop seeds that are selected when you hit start on the one player on the title screen. Of those 4, 2 of them have capabilities of being world records, and because of that save state, we're actually able to create a save state file after we've selected the drop seed, but before we've selected our character. So this guarantees us the best of the 4 possible drop seeds. So it gets rid of about what could be a 2-minute time loss in the RNG. So I'm also going to talk about several other differences between the Super Nintendo and arcade versions, but we'll talk about most of that as we play. So we're just going to switch right on over and go ahead and get things started. So as you can see, I'm selecting the Wizard. The Wizard is by far the best character in this game. For sheer damage output, both from attack and from his, as Capcom calls it, extra joy, which is magic, you'll see that he pretty much can just power through all of the enemies here. Also, the magic damage that his orbs do is more than any other character, so we get a little advantage there. Again, you can see him just kind of go right through everybody on his way to the boss. We did get a good seed because it was guaranteed, and you can see by bringing this orb to the boss, we're able to get an insta-kill on the boss. Those orbs, there's 3 ways to get the drop orbs that you saw there. 1, they fall from chest, and those are guaranteed on the drop seed. 2, whenever our lives go to 0, you can see that green leaf that says 1. Once that says 0, and then I take a death, we'll get a guaranteed orb on that drop. And the other way that we get orbs is we get random orb drops from enemies. So sometimes the RNG is such that we just get these random orbs, and they will save really significant amounts of time. We're coming up on the Minotaur boss. The Minotaur boss is kind of a unique boss. When he takes 4 bars of health of damage and only has 4 left, which you can see he's already got, and he lands on the ground, we get an animation where he drops us down into this cool Colosseum background. Unfortunately, it's really slow for that to happen. We lose a couple seconds from the animation. So we just kill him by keeping him in the air and juggling him with our magic. So we're actually coming up on one of the first bosses that I think has a huge difference between the arcade and the Super Nintendo. You'll see that some of the enemy spawns are different than the normal of the Super Nintendo. And that's just because the difficulty here is 1 point higher than what the Super Nintendo's base difficulty is. So that's an example of one of those drop orbs. So now we've got a chest orb and a drop orb. We're also going to despawn a few of the enemies here. Yep, we despawned one of the green orcs. And then we should be using these orbs shortly just to take out some of these enemies here. So coming up on the Wyvern boss is significantly faster in the arcade version. The arcade version in general just runs quicker, but you can see the Wyvern spawn significantly faster than he does in the arcade version. Also, having that orb gets us through his first phase. He has 5 phases, 3 of which are air phases, 2 of which are ground. And so the first air phase takes 2 bars of health, where the other 2 only take 1, and both ground phases take 2. So that guaranteed orb that I just got there, I'm going to save for this ground phase. You're going to see it's going to take us right through him, right back to his air phase. This is a very quick boss fight. One of the other differences in the arcade version is there is no cooldown time for the wizard's weapon when he is in the air. That means if I swing and hit an enemy instantly in the air, I instantly can attack again. And that we'll take advantage of that on most of the bosses in the run, where you'll see me jumping a lot to get in just multiple hits in a row. Here, we're coming up on the first instance of the slime enemies. The slime enemies are enemies that can grab you. They also can jump. They're relatively harmless, but the issue is there's only 2 characters in the game that can hit them when they are still on the ground. And that is, as you can see, the wizard can with his level 3 weapon, and the dwarf can with any of his weapons. The dwarf, unfortunately, is slow in all other regards of the game and is actually the worst character. So we won't ever try to play the dwarf unless we have to. So it's good that the wizard can take out those slimes on the ground to save a little time. All right, we took out these enemies nice and quick, and we're coming up on the Hydra. The Hydra on the Super Nintendo version only can spawn 2 heads because of sprite limitations, but here we're actually going to have all 3 of them on the screen at the same time. The Hydra is one of the trolliest bosses of the game. He can basically abuse, as you can see there, Green's totally invincible just standing there. But yeah, he can basically abuse iframes when he pulls his head back and dives at you. Every time he does that, he's totally invincible for the entire animation. But they can also just stand there and be completely invincible as well. So being able to get through them quickly like I did there is really lucky. And a lot of times we can lose 30 seconds on Hydra if it just decides not to cooperate. Here we just have to basically, it's an auto-scrolling level. You can see the background there. We basically just need the ship that we're on to reach this island. And so we're just going to kill a bunch of skeletons in the process. The difference between Super Nintendo here is the Super Nintendo is not able to handle a lot of treasure and skeletons. So we have to deal with trying to keep the lag down a lot more significantly. The arcade here also has the issue that one of those troglodytes that you saw there can spawn late. The troglodytes are a very slow enemy to kill. It takes 2 hits, but there's a lot of iframes as they fall in between those hits. So our ability to take them out quickly is because we use that frog orb to get an insta-kill. Here on the landing, we want to get 3 birds at the end of that end screen. If we can kill 3 birds all at once, it instantly ends the level. But if 2 birds show up and we kill them and then the 3rd one doesn't spawn yet, then we'll actually have 3 more birds spawn and we can lose a good 10 to 15 seconds there. Here we're just cleaning up some orcs, and then we have my least favorite enemy in the game. These are the skeletons. You couldn't tell there, but the skeletons are another enemy that can just cost a lot of time. They have a sword attack and a shield that basically, if they're attacking, jumping, or using their shield, they are invincible until they decide to no longer be invincible. So I killed them extremely quickly there, but they can be really slow on the other hand. That was Minotaur 2. If you blinked, you missed him because he's really quick. That jump attacking just lets us go through him fast. Here's the staircase. We're just going to be killing some orcs. As far as drop rates, the green orcs are unable to drop orbs, but both the blue and the reds can drop them. And so that was a guaranteed orb from a death, but we also can get lucky and get a drop from any of these orcs here. Skeletons do not drop orbs, so I won't be getting any drops from these guys. And we also will be coming up on lizardmen later. The green lizardmen do not drop orbs, just like the green orcs don't, but we can get drops from most of the other lizardmen. All right, once again, more skeletons. You can see they're just kind of trolling me. Tried to get to that orb in time, but just wasn't able to make that connection. Unfortunately, that sometimes happens, but we were able to take out the skeletons quickly regardless. We're actually coming up, we've got a couple more enemies, and then we're coming up on the Cyclops boss. You also see there's this thief that keeps running on the screen. That thief only shows up in the arcade versions of the game, and he actually runs on to steal your treasure. He's relatively harmless, except sometimes he will take a hit from your magic, which means an enemy doesn't take a hit from it. And he also can steal health items, which can be kind of a pain when you're planning on those. All right, so once again, if you blinked, you missed that boss. That was a Cyclops. Cyclops has three different attacks. He has a punching attack, a grabbing attack, and he has an attack where he jumps and grabs the ceiling and then throws it at you. In the arcade version, because of that jump damage, we're able to basically just jump back and forth and just get a ridiculous amount of damage on him quickly. Here we have more slimes. Again, we have the level 4 weapon that's still capable of hitting them, so we're not going to have any issues hitting these guys on the ground or in the air. The strat on this stage, we want to get this fire orb that's in the left chest, and we want to bring it all the way to the end of the stage to take on these lizard men. Unfortunately, I got turned around there and I attacked in the wrong direction, so I missed the one-hit kill on all of these skeletons. So already we're losing a lot of time here. I had to use that fire orb there instead of bringing it to the lizard men. You can also see my placement's off on all these enemies. I'm not able to kill the skeletons quickly at all. Skeletons just really are a pain. All right, so the lizard men have counterattack systems, so they can also have some RNG because they can basically shield or counter your attacks just consistently. and sometimes they go down in 2 hits, sometimes they go down in 5 hits. This is the spider boss. The spider boss is extremely susceptible to magic, so using that orb on the spiders, it makes them super quick. Because of the iframes and the fact that they are really weak to magic, I can pretty much just take them out with a full bar of health and never worry about taking a hit. So we just saved the tree there. I don't blame him. I'm not a big fan of spiders myself. We're going to skip this weapon. This is why this is an any % run. This weapon technically does the same damage as our current weapon, but it does it in several frames of damage. It does damage over time, where our current weapon does it all at once. The reason why that makes such a difference is most of these enemies are only going to take damage from the first attack, the first instance of damage. So it's better to keep this one that does more damage up front than to grab that slightly, well, same damage one that's slightly slower in the end. A couple of these enemies can drop orbs, but it's really rare to get an orb drop here. However, we are coming up on the first instance of the archers. These archers have a really high drop rate, and in the arcade version, we actually get 5 of them, where in the Super Nintendo, only 3 spawn at a time. So we have a lot of chances to get these orb drops from these enemies. Any orb drops here will be very useful. Side note, we actually skipped the meteor orb, which is an orb that causes an animation that drops meteors from the sky. It takes about 3 to 5 seconds for the animation to go, and I can't attack during it. And unfortunately, it half the time doesn't even damage the enemies. So you'll see, I'm just going to basically skip it, and yeah, I'm not going to bother with it. It's just not worth the risk. This is the Dragon Rider. The trick with the Dragon Rider, he only has 2 forms of attack. Either he'll use the halberd or his fire. If you're in line with his body, the fire can never hit you. And as long as you keep jumping, you can pretty much dodge that halberd. It also lets you abuse that lack of cooldown time in the air. And that boss is kind of a joke. That's extremely important because we're going to fight him multiple times. In fact, the game takes no time to bring back that sprite. So we're going to see it 2 more times in this stage. We also are going to get a chance for an orb drop from these archers. You can see we have a guaranteed frog orb. That frog orb, again, instantly turns the enemies to frogs. But if you use it on a mini-boss, it instead just does damage 4 times. And you can see we just did 4 damage attacks there by using that frog orb. And then with a shot of lightning and a couple attacks, it's very quick to get through them. All right, we're just cleaning up these orcs quickly. Another orb drop from those orcs can be very helpful. Another difference here, so we can actually despawn and skip all of these enemies. We can go right to this Dragon Rider. You'll also see that once we despawn those enemies, more enemies show up. One of the differences here is the game, in the Super Nintendo version, they're not able to have all the sprites on the screen, so they make you kill that Dragon Rider before the orcs show up. But in the arcade version, you can fight them all at the same time. We'll have another instance later where that's the case as well. Where we're able to fight the enemies that normally would proceed or would follow the boss. Okay, so we have an orb drop here. This is the Black Knight, but we call him a ninja because obvious reasons. He basically, we want to abuse the guaranteed hits for this enemy. When he's swinging at us and when he's standing still, he will counter our attacks and not take very much damage. But if he is jumping or mid-attack, or if he is running around the screen or throwing ninja stars, in all those instances, he will take full blast from our damage. Also, shout out to Jerk Knight. Jerk Knight is called Jerk Knight because he's sending us on a quest to go save the princess. He asked us to go with him, but we're never going to see him again. If it wasn't for him, we think we could save another 2 or 3 minutes in this speed run, just not going to save the princess. So thanks, Jerk Knight, for making this go a little bit longer. These are the mummies. In the Super Nintendo version, we rely on being able to despawn them. Basically, they can take damage from your attack, or they can they do this evasive maneuver where they go flying backwards and they take 0 damage from your attack. If they go flying backwards and they go past the despawn plane that's just off the screen, we'll actually despawn them and not have to kill them. In the Super Nintendo version, it takes a lot longer to kill them, so we kind of want that to happen. But here we can kill them super fast, so as long as they don't deflect the attacks, we can get through them really fast. So the Wraith has 2 ways to damage you. They can damage you by hitting you with their bodies, as you saw there, or by throwing scythes at you. As long as I consistently hit them with my attack, you'll see that once they take a hit from me, their bodies spin and they can't actually hit me. And I can also deflect their sights, so it's a relatively harmless boss. We stay at the top of the screen because if we go to the bottom, they don't line up perfectly because the screen's slightly smaller on the arcade version. We're not able to get quite as low to hit them. Normally, I want to have at least 24 health leaving this stage so I can do exactly 3 magic attacks. Unfortunately, I've only got 17, so I'm not able to do the quick kill on all these skeletons, but I am going to kill them fairly quickly. Unfortunately, had I gotten this level a little faster, I could have saved another second or two. Alright, we're going to be coming up on more archers and more lizardmen. We're basically at this point just trying to set things up. Ideally, I would save this orb until the end of the stage, but there's a lot of dodging you need to do. And I unfortunately did not dodge that archer. So that does give me magic though, so I can take out these archers a little faster, and I'm just going to use these orbs to kill off the lizardmen. We're going to fight more archers and more chances for orbs, and we really do need an orb for the Dragonian. The Dragonian is really susceptible to magic, and so if we're able to use our magic, or if we're able to get an orb to kill him, 2 orbs is almost an insta-kill. So if we're able to get those, we can go through them really quickly, but it's highly unlikely that'll happen. It really is highly RNG dependent. On a side note, if we were on a fire orb seed, there is a guaranteed orb in that far left chest that we don't get in this current seed. Unfortunately, there's a number of other time losses. Alright, so I use that orb at the beginning when I know that I can hit the boss. He can swing his sword, he can do that shield charge, and he can do this sky attack. He's susceptible to magic during the sky attack and the sword attack, but when he shield charges, he's completely invincible. So I'm trying to time my magic and time my attacks when he's not using his shield. He also is kind of dramatic, so sometimes he will fly off screen, and if he dies off screen, he will walk into the middle of the screen and waste a few seconds. We did just save the princess there. Unfortunately, our dragon's in another castle, so we are going to keep things going. As I said before, there's one dragon rider that we fight at the beginning of a stage where the enemies spawn during him, and this is that instance. So in the Super Nintendo, you have to kill the dragon rider and then wait for all these enemies. Here, we actually can just go right through them. So by killing the dragon rider but using my magic to kill the skeletons, we are already at the end of the stage. Here, there is a black knight that's hidden off screen, and so if I kill them with magic, if I do it right, I can make him show up. That's a little Easter egg that's fun to use. This is the double ninja, the Royal Knights. We're going to be targeting... red automatically gets targeted with our magic as long as he's hittable at the time. So we're going to try to focus as much as we can on green, but the more that they're right next to each other, the easier it is to hit them both. And it lets me do a lot of damage quickly, as you can see there. So here, I'm just hitting them whenever they're susceptible to magic, and then trying to get attacks in the rest of the time. That orb drop's a little unfortunate. Every time that we get an orb, while the orb can do a lot of damage, we lose time from the death animation, and there's a character arbitration screen that happens every time we've used to continue. So at the end of this stage, you're going to see I'm going to have to reselect the wizard. And that costs us just a few seconds to have that screen show up. I think it's 3 or 4 seconds each time. So if we're going to do that, we hope that the orbs are going to save that same amount of time. Alright, so I am setting up a death glitch here. Not a death glitch. It's a death setup. I'm going to basically set it up so I'm going to get an orb on the next stage. There's more troglodytes on the next stage, and if we have an orb, I can take them out and save 10 to 15 seconds just by using that. I'm also going to bring this orb here to the end of the stage to take on Baby Mage. These guys, it takes 2 attacks of magic for the first group, and 3 attacks for the first group, and 2 for the second group. And by doing that, I'm able to quickly get to this wizard fight with this orb. Baby Mage is going to take 2 hits of this fire, and then 2 hits of my attack for me to kill him. If I do take damage here, it's going to really mess things up for the Dark Wizard fight, so I'm happy that it was nice and clean. I need exactly 5 magic attacks to be able to get through this fight without taking damage. The wizard basically just shoots magic at you, and because of our iframe abuse from our magic weapon, or our extra joy, we're basically able to just dodge all of his attacks. You can see we just are abusing those iframes and popping all these extra hits with our fire. This basically makes us invincible. You also see we have 1 hit point left. That guarantees us that orb. on the start of the next stage. I'll use 1 lightning on the group of 3 troglodytes, and then I'll take a death from them, finish them up quickly, and then I should be set up to kill off the next group of 2 troglodytes. Again, saving 10 to 15 seconds. So this is a new, more recent strat that I came up with that helped me get this time as low as it currently is. So here we go. We're just going to clean these guys up. Again, that falling animation, they're totally invincible during, so we really want to maximize our damage in between. All right, so we get those insta-kills. Those guys take a good 10 to 15 seconds, so killing them instantly is really nice. And we are grabbing the best weapon in the game. This is the Wizard's Lightning Staff, and as you can see, not only is it a really cool animation, but it goes through almost every enemy. It goes about halfway across the screen. It does a lot of damage quickly, and it's able to use the lack of a cooldown time when jumping. So you can see I'm going to be able to do a lot of damage to this Ice Wyvern very quickly. Yeah, super fast. This is part of why I always played the Wizard as a kid. Technically, the fighter's weapon here does more damage, and he can attack a little faster, but it doesn't matter. The range of the Wizard just is already so astronomical that it just makes such a difference here. This is just a recolor of the previous Wyvern. It's the Ice Wyvern. Instead of shooting fireballs, he shot balls of ice. Those can freeze you, which is, while it can slow you down, it doesn't really damage you very much because you can just spin to get out of it. So they bring in those what we call pencil men. They're lizard men with these like ballistic spears. But my brother and I always thought they looked like Ticonderoga number 2 pencils, so we just always called them pencil men. So they brought those in to make that boss a little more lethal. Here again we have slimes. This weapon actually cannot hit the slimes on the ground, but luckily there's only a couple groups of slimes, and we're just going to take them out with magic anyways. Again, these mummies are almost faster just to kill. You can see we're not even trying to do any despawning. We're just hitting them with our magic. It only takes 4 hits to kill them, so it's very quick. The skeletons are all 1-hit kills with our attack and 2-hit kills with magic, so it's really quick. Something I didn't mention, there are no Yashishis in the arcade version. That is because it's just free play, and so we can pretty much just unlimited die without any issues. We're not going to do that because it is relatively slow, but we are going to abuse an orb on most of the bosses to kind of get through it quickly. I'm just trying to get to that orb now. This is the double Cyclops, same as the previous Cyclops. The only difference is there's 2 of them. The lag reduction we deal with in the Super Nintendo is non-existent here, just because the arcade version is so much more capable. Again, we have that character arbitration screen, and here we are already at the end of the game. We are significantly further ahead of the Super Nintendo's world record by, I'd say, about 3.5 minutes ahead of it. So this is a much faster paced game just because the way that the game is played, because it's a more capable system. So it's a little bit more exciting than Super Nintendo, and there's a couple more things we can abuse, like that jump. I also didn't mention we can fast forward through all the text by holding attack and jump at the same time. Here at Gildas, I'm just going to try to use my magic to keep him from getting me with his fire breath, and then I'm going to use my attack just to take him out as quickly as possible. So you can see he has every 2 bars of health, he switches sides, and those are essentially his phases. Once he gets down to 2 bars of health left, he'll switch every one bar that he loses. It's a relatively easy boss, and I'm actually working on a blindfolded version of the boss that could be cool for an incentive. I haven't perfected it yet because it's a little difficult to do based off sound, especially since the arcade sound is not perfect. But the Super Nintendo's timing's a little more consistent. You can see, unlike the Super Nintendo, we're able to get 2 shots in between each of our magics. And again, I'm using that jump, that lack of cooldown time for the weapon when jumping, to just get a lot of extra shots in on the dragon's face here. A little bit of lag caused by that gold dropping. There is not dropping gold in the Super Nintendo version. It only drops here, and that's good because it causes lag here, which means it would cause the game to probably freeze in the Super Nintendo version. All right, so we got that drop orb, and you can see we're just going to finish up this boss here. 1 bar of health left, and that is Gildas. So the time happens when we lose control of the character, when he raises his arms here, right here at the very ending. And that is time. So that is King of Dragons arcade version. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really appreciate you taking time to watch this run. It's quite different from what the Super Nintendo shows, just with the ability to fast forward some sections, the just faster gameplay in general, and the fact that that we're able to do so much more damage so quickly. But yeah, I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this. I hope you enjoyed it.